The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Rishab. I'm a marketing associate here at Truss Solutions, now part of the Great Tech Group, and I will be your host for today. Joining me is Aparna, our senior implementation specialist, who will be taking us through join marker options in MWF. MWF, which stands for Metal Wood Framer, is our flagship software that helps you automate and enhance the modeling and manufacturing of your timber and light gauge steel framing right inside the Autodesk Revit environment. Very briefly, I would also like to talk about our newest tool called FrameLab that was designed to help your teams identify issues around openings, features to help you improve multidisciplinary coordination and workflow efficiency, ultimately allowing your teams to avoid costly rework and save time and money in the process. So I do invite you to learn more about this product on our website, www.struxsoftsolutions.com. Before we begin, please note that we will be taking live questions at the end of this webinar. If you have a question, you can raise your hand in the GoToWebinar dashboard so one of us can get to you and unmute you. Also, please make sure that your mic is working correctly. You may also ask questions during the webinar by typing them into the questions tab of the webinar dashboard. And of course, you can do so at the end of this webinar as well. That's it for me. I do hope you enjoy the webinar and find it informative. I will let Aparna take it over from now.
Hi everyone, my name is Aparna Bhatia, and today we're going to discuss opening marker options. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the options in LGS, and then we're going to go into wood as well. So before we get into any of the markers and stuff like that, if you ever find that your marker manager in here is empty or blank, like there's nothing showing up here or for any of the tabs if it seems empty, then what you could do is you could go to settings and click on load data. So before you ever consider creating an opening marker or drawing in an opening marker, make sure you've loaded in your data. So for me, since I'm using Pro Suite, I have the option to load in LGS default or wood default. So if you're working on MWF Pro Metal or Advanced Metal, you'll have only the LGS option. And if you have MWF Pro Wood, then you will only have the wood option, all right? So just make sure that you load your data. And once you load your data and hit the checkbox, basically everything in your marker manager will be populated. So you'll see that everything shows up when you need it to. All right, so that's a quick start or quick thing to do before we start with openings. So let's begin with our openings. So here I have MWF LGS 4-inch wall, and then I have a 6-inch wall, and all of them are similar conditions. And over here I have an MWF 4-inch wood wall, and here I have an MWF 6-inch wood wall. So since for wood, the stud sizes are actually skinnier or smaller, this 4-inch wall is actually 3.5 inches in width, right? Because the nominal size of the stud. So let's start with LGS. So let's talk about our default non-bearing markers. So when you're applying your marker, you can select the opening or openings, like if I wanted to do it for all 4 of them, and just go to MWF and then go to markers and then apply opening type. And over here, usually this will be blank. You can go ahead and select your marker that you want to apply. So if I wanted to apply the LGS default non-bearing, that's what I will apply, okay? So you can apply your markers before you frame your walls or before you quick create your walls. And the benefit of this is after you apply the marker, you don't have to remember to regenerate your walls again. This way, when it's creating your wall the first time, it will remember to look for the marker data and create the wall with the marker data. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. So if I'm applying a marker manually, this is how I would do it. And then I'd go ahead and hit the checkbox. And then if I wanted to really quickly quick create this wall, let's just go ahead and quick create it. You will notice that it will create the it will create the framing with the markers provided or chosen, basically. So I'm going to go to 3D just to take a look at these walls. So you can see over here that I've applied the same marker to all 4 of these openings, but over here, since this is a 4-inch wall, it's stating that it's 400 S125-27, and over here, since this is a 6-inch wall, it's using a 600 S137-33. So how is it getting this data? How does it know what to place in which wall? Because it's the same marker, right? So let's first go and take a look at the marker itself. So I'm going to click on the opening here. Sorry, I'm going to click on the opening here. You can actually see that my window is a fixed 36 by 48 window, and even though it looks like I've only placed openings around, I've actually not. I've actually placed a proper door and a proper window. Let me just quickly show you how I do that. Oops. So typically, if you have a door, like this is the actual door. So all I've done is I've left the doors checked on, and I've actually just unchecked everything except for the opening. And if I do that, what ends up happening is it allows me to still select my door and still know what is in there, except I don't see everything around it. Because if I left it on, sorry, if I go VV and I go door again, and if I left the frame and the glass and the panel and all of that on, you'll notice that you, in elevation view, you might actually be covering your framing with your frame, or your header with your frame, right? So that's why what I like to do is I don't mind using real windows and doors. The only thing I'll do is when I'm working with MWF, I'll go to the doors, I'll type in VV or VG, or click on visibility graphics overrides. And then I'll just select everything in here and uncheck it, and then only keep my opening turned on. So once I have that, you'll see that it kind of looks like a blank opening. And then when I come down here and I select this, you'll see that it tells me it's a single flush door. So that way I can still select the door, still grab data from it, but it is just an opening for me to use for MWF purposes. All right, and you can also see if it's framing the opening properly this way compared to it being hidden behind frames and panels and stuff like that. Okay, so that's basically what I've done there. So now let's go ahead and take a look at that marker like we were supposed to. So I'm gonna again click on apply opening type, and you'll notice that over here there's a little pencil. So if you are modifying anything after clicking this pencil, if you modify anything in here, you're actually fixing the real marker. So any opening this marker has been applied to, once you regenerate those walls, the framing will update to whatever you've updated in here. So just because you've selected single opening and clicked on the pencil does not mean you're fixing just that one opening. You're actually fixing the marker for the entire project. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's a little dangerous. So this is almost as if you're, not almost, this is as if you're going into Market Manager, double clicking the marker and making modifications to it. Okay. So that's basically what that is. So in the default non-bearing marker, you'll notice that there's nothing checked on, but it tells you what kind of header it's going to use. It's using a flat centered header and a flat centered sill. So you'll notice that we've applied the same marker to the window and the door, right? So whenever it's a door family, it automatically knows not to place a sill, okay? Just something to keep in mind. So even if you specify a sill member, just because it's a door, it will not place the sill anyways. So you'll notice that nothing is actually checked on. So we were wondering how it's following whatever the template is, right? And that's because of this. Over here, you can see you can specify a header type, jack type, king type, and sill type. But since this is grayed out, it's going to use whatever is part of your template properties, okay? I'll show you that in a little second. But if you ever did want your marker to enforce a size, like if you wanted to create one and say, no, you know what, all my headers need to be 600 S200, you will go to this tab called parameters, and you'll check on type header. And when you go back to the openings tab here, you'll notice that the header will actually no longer be gray. right? So this is grayed out, or these are grayed out, but the header is no longer grayed out. So it'll actually allow you to now choose a size that you want it to be, all right? So if I actually go back to parameters and I uncheck this, if it's grayed out, it's not going to follow any size that you picked in here. It's going to follow whatever is a part of your template, okay? The other things you can have it follow from your template are the tolerances here as well, along with the cripple type. So that's something to keep in mind. Right now, the cripple is following whatever the panel verticals are, or you can also set it to be same as panel cripple override. So if you have overwritten the cripples in your panel properties, you can use that functionality there, or you can choose your size that you want here. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it same as panel verticals because I don't want to modify the default marker that we've provided. Now, if you wanted to duplicate this marker and make modifications to it, so say if you wanted to add kings on either side, so you can choose the member over here, and you can say I want to add it to both sides, or just left, or just right. Okay, and then over here you can choose inverted. So when you choose inverted, basically what that means is, think about this as the plan view of a window. The member, when it's inverted, will be placed like so. So the return lips will be placed here, and then the web will be placed flush to the edge of the window. Okay. If you don't choose inverted, then the open side will be facing the edge of the window. Okay. So if I choose inverted here, I can go ahead and add that, and that will add an additional king on both sides. Okay. Now the benefit of doing something like this is, you see how it says default type? That means it's going to use whatever is inside your panel properties. But what if you wanted one king to be default and the second king to be something else, like you wanted to actually specify a size for it? You can actually select the second king here, and you can say, you know what, this one actually needs to be 400S200-68. Okay, and then I'm going to click on set, and it will set that as a as the member size. You see how it didn't do it on the right side because we only did it for the left. So if I wanted to change the right, I would have to do that here again. But I just want to show you, when you select a size, what that does when it's applied to multiple different wall sizes or wall panels. Okay, so I'm just going to hit checkbox and hit checkbox. Now that I've modified the marker, I got to come here and regenerate these panels. So let's go ahead and do regenerate. Give it a second. And once you regenerate, you'll notice that we have our color scheme turned on. So it added that member here. So for the 4-inch panel, it looks okay. You know, you see that it looks fine. It's no issues. But for the 6-inch panel, you see how there's a 6-inch member and then there's a 4-inch member, because that was set to default. And this was actually a type we specified. So then you might need to create 2 markers so that you could specify the sizes for both sides. Okay. So that's the thing with a default marker. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that back to be what we had originally, which was a single king. So I'm going to just right click here and delete the king. And again, right click here and delete the king and just hit the checkbox. And when I regenerate both the panels, it will reset them back to what it was. Now, I did mention that it was reading the template properties. So where is it hidden inside the template in order for us to modify these opening settings? Okay, so I'm going to click on this and I'm going to go to properties. Over here, there's a miscellaneous tab, and then we have something called opening framing. So when we click on opening framing, we can click on the edit functionality beside it. All right. So when we click on the edit functionality, you see over here it says use settings from openings tab. So we're going to go to the openings tab. And over here, you'll see that we have 3 options. We have window, door, and opening. So I'm just going to stick to window. So I can specify different framing for this panel for a window versus a door versus an opening. So what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to specify for a window, to have a 400T for the header, to have a 400T 43, 400T 243 as the header, and 400T 243 for the sill. And then for the kings and jacks, I wanted to use whatever our vertical studs are, so I left it blank. Now for the door, I'm going to say for this panel, I want it to be 400T 268. And then I want the sill to be, well, it's a door, so technically sill doesn't matter, but I like to modify that as well. And then over here for the jack and the king, I'm just going to modify the king. The king, I want it to be a 400 S200, and that's it. So over here you can see there's the double header added if there is no marker applied. But if there is a marker applied, it will follow whatever the marker has, or whatever amount of members the marker has, and it will place the framing accordingly. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. Feel free to ask questions in the questions chat box if you have any. All right, so here you go. Since we didn't change any of the kings, it kept it basic to match the studs, to match the vertical studs. And over here, you'll notice that it changed the header to be T200, even though the marker just says to use default type. So default type is whatever is inside the template, and that's what it's following. And you'll notice over here, even if I regenerate this wall, it's not going to change anything because in this template, we haven't specified anything. If I wanted to, I can specify it and save it as part of a template. Okay, so that's just something quick you can do for your templates. Okay, the next one we have is ignore openings between studs. So again, like I said, you can actually apply the markers to the openings prior to creating the panel. So again, I'll apply opening type. I'll make sure it says ignore openings between studs, and I'll hit the checkbox. And now what I can do is I can select these two and just go ahead and quick create. And I'm creating these with our basic templates. And over there, that the things that I modified in the template, I've not saved it as over top of this template that I'm using. So you'll notice that the settings haven't been modified here. I only changed it for that specific wall. Okay, if I wanted to save it over top of the template that I'm currently using, I can do that and then replace my template inside the template map, right? So right now I don't want to do that. I just want it to be the way it is. And what we're going to do is go into the 3D view for this. And over here, you'll notice that since we applied the marker that's called ignore openings between studs, you'll see over here the opening is in between studs, so it didn't frame it. Even though this has the same marker, but since this opening is actually encroaching into multiple studs or actually interfering with the stud spacing, it will actually try to frame it like a real opening. Okay, so let's go take a look at this marker again. So let's go ahead into markers, apply opening type, and then just click on the little pencil beside it. And over here, you'll notice that we have this checkbox checked on. So you'll see that there is do not frame between openings. So that means if, do not frame between studs. So if there's any opening in between studs, it will not frame it. So these would be good for MEP openings or any openings that are smaller than your stud spacing. You can use this option, or like maybe a duct opening or a vent opening and so on and so forth. You can use this option for that. There's also an option called ignore. So ignore is really good for MEP openings that you do not want to frame no matter what, okay? So this is do not frame between studs. So if an opening is in between studs, it will not frame it. But if you check on ignore, so uncheck this and just check on ignore. Ignore basically means ignore this opening completely, don't frame it, doesn't matter if it's in between, if it's hitting the stud or not, just don't frame it. So that would be a good function to add, or you can duplicate this marker and then add this, check this on as another function so that if that opening is created, if then MEP opening is created, that's maybe 3 inches, 2 inches, you don't want it to frame, even if it's hitting a stud. Just have this marker with ignore checked on applied to it, and it will not frame that opening, okay? So that's basically it. Again, you can modify the number of members that get created if it was clashing with a stud. If you wanted to add a king header, so on and so forth, you could add those in, or you could also specify custom sizes if you need to, okay? So that's this marker that we give you by default. The next one we have is stretch to nearest. So this is really good. Again, we'll apply the marker first. So go to markers, apply opening type, and we'll choose the LGS stretch to nearest. When I go and take a look into this, you'll see that there's a stretch to nearest checkbox. So we check that on, and that's how it knows it needs to use the stretch to nearest functionality. And then over here, it says stretch to nearest, add verticals. Okay, so I'll show you what this does in a second. Like I'll show it to you once we are in the 3D view. And then over here, you'll see that add vertical tolerance. So whenever, if the stud is closer than, is more than 4 inches away from the edge of the opening, then I want you to add that vertical. But if it is less than 4 inches away, then don't add that vertical. Okay, so basically that's what that means. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this or how this gets created. So we're going to go ahead and quick create this. Give it a quick second. And we can, oops, we can take a quick look at this in 3D. So BX, and over here, you can see this is what stretch to nearest does. Okay, so it adds the verticals since the opening is 4 inches away from the studs, typical studs. But what it also does is it actually treats these as king studs. So it converts or changes the value of this typical stud to be a king stud. So over here, you'll see that it says SWR0-2, and then over here, it says SWL1-2. Okay, so same thing here. It says SDL1-1, and over here, SDR0-1. Okay, so SD is stud door or king for a door, and then R would basically stand for the right side, and then this one over here is basically meant for opening number 1. So this is opening number 1, and then this one it's considering opening number 2. So oops, this one it considers opening number 2. So when you look at the BIMSF label for this, it says SW, which is stud window. R0 means right side stud, right side king. And then 2 is basically because it's opening 2. And if I click on the left side, you'll notice that it says SW, stud window, L1, so left 1. And this one says 2, so that's just representing which window it belongs to. Okay, so that's an easy way to be able to tell which windows, which members belong to. Yeah, that's basically what it does. It treats the typical stud as a king. There seems to be something there. Okay. Next one we have is went and kings only. So I'm going to actually quick create this one first. But basically, we have 2 markers, one which is for went, and then the other one is for kings only. And it will give me a bunch of errors because the went is too low to the ground. So let me just go ahead and fix that really quick. So I'll just say rectangular straight wall openings. I'll have it go -6 inches from the top, and then the base offset, I'll make it 10 feet. Okay, and then let's go ahead into our 3D views and regenerate these walls. No, okay. So it tells me that vent opening failed because I tried to apply it to our window family and our door family, right? So typically the vent opening framing can only be applied to our vent openings, which are like rectangular straight wall openings. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go to markers, apply opening types here. And over here it says Kings only framing. So I'm gonna click on the little pencil and make sure that it says same as panel stud, or you can actually have it be same as panel king. So whatever your panel properties have set up as a king, it will use that value. So I'll check that on and hit OK. Okay, something broke there. That's fine. So I'll check that again. Sorry. So properties. No, not this. Sorry. Markers, apply opening type. I'm just going to click on this again. We'll just leave it back to same as panel stud. Maybe I haven't specified a king in the panel properties, so that's why it's freaking out there. That's fine. It's probably broken because of the point. Okay. And now what I can do is I can double check my windows as well and make sure the markers applied are, yeah, it says kings only, so that's good. Okay, that's not working there. Give me 1 second. Let's try to quickly figure this out. And for this one, it's supposed to be event opening framing. If I click on here, yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And it's okay. All right, let me just double check. 1, 2, and let's regenerate these panels. So you'll notice with kings only, it doesn't place any cripples at the top or cripples at the bottom or a header or a sill. It just places king on either side. So you'll see it says SWL12, and then over here it says SWR1-2. Okay, so that's basically how it is being created. So that's what kings only framing looks like. So there's no cripples at the top and no headers and no cells. Okay, and then for the vent framing over here, it will frame it based on whatever members you've selected. So this is what our vent framing looks like. Okay, so it creates these little jacks underneath to help support that opening there. All right, so that's our vent framing and kings only. And then over here, oops, let's go to built up. So built up system marker, again, I'm just going to quick create this wall because the marker is kind of already applied. So the multiple built up system marker basically is meant for you to be able to customize. Yeah, I haven't edited the marker yet, so that's why the error came up. So basically this marker is meant to create is meant to create custom conditions, right? So over here we have something like a box header. So if you wanted to create a box header with a marker, this is how you would do it. So you can double click here and we have a few options in here for your marker, for your box header. So you can select whichever option you want and then select the sizes you want for it. So for a multiple built up member system, you need to make sure you have selected, you create a marker for all the different sizes you've chosen. So if you want to apply the marker for a 400 wall versus a 600 wall, you need to create a marker for 400 and you need to create a marker for 600. Okay, because it's not something as simple as use defaults because you're telling it to override the template settings. All right. So also in this you also have the option to place the header at the top of the opening or at the top of the panel. Okay, so if you place it at the top of the panel, it will place it within the opening range or between the kings, but at the top of the panel. So I can check this on and then it will enable top of panel. And then we have a box header option. Again, you can choose your customizations over here. Okay, I'm not going to override the cripple track, but over here it forces you to select a horizontal stud. So I'm just going to make it 600 T268. And you can also add a clip angle to the top and bottom of the header. and you can choose your size for the clip angle, and you can also make this a sub-assembly. Okay, so if you're adding this to multiple openings, you can create it as a sub-assembly, have this built and ready to go, and then add it to the panels as you need it to be added. Okay, so that's what you can do it with the sub-assembly. You can also place a lintel plate header, something like so. You can also place interlock connections, something like this, or you can place a built-up condition, something like so, where you have multiple headers or capped headers. Okay. So even with the box header, you have a few options here. All right, so I'm gonna just place a regular box header at the top of the panel. For the sill, I don't want to overwrite whatever I have in the template, just follow whatever's in the template. For the kings, again, you can have it follow whatever's in the template, or you can do a built-up jam and then select your condition that you want for the built-up jam. Okay. So if I just do regular built up, we have these conditions that you can follow. And then if you have a built up C-stud jam, you can use that one. But yeah, you have a few options available here for you to use. And then there's also a single and a double for interlock. Okay, so I'm gonna just have it follow whatever's inside the template settings. Actually, yeah, let's specify the studs here. So let's do a built up and let's do a reversed cap. And then you can choose your sizes over here. Okay, so it's not gonna follow whatever's inside your template. You have to choose a size. So over here, you can choose your sizes. So I'm gonna do 600 S, oh wow, no, that's too big. 600 S to 168, again, same size for all of them. Okay, or for the track, if I wanted to make a different size, choose a different size, I could choose something like 43 and see what it looks like. And again, you can make this a sub-assembly because it's multiple studs. You can again choose your jack settings, or you can ignore overriding the templates. And then you have the option to use rough opening sizes instead of providing tolerances inside the marker. This is the preferred method for me. Like I prefer to use the windows and doors rough opening property instead of using the tolerances in the marker, because that way if there's one special opening, like maybe an example would be a sliding door might need a little more tolerance than a regular door, right? Or a regular non-sliding door, I would say, or a double door. So you could basically say, I want the same framing applied, just follow the rough opening dimensions, because the offset for the framing needs to be a little higher for a sliding door versus a regular double door. Okay, so you can choose to use that and it will follow whatever your settings state in there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. That's fine. I'll just regenerate the wall panels. Hopefully no errors. I think it gave me an error because I didn't edit the marker before applying it, so it didn't know what to do. All right, give it a second. And we'll go ahead and go to 3D view. And you'll see that it created our headers and it created our track. It's a little hard to see because it's behind each other or in between each other. But if I go to structural columns and make them a little transparent, you'll be able to see the conditions. Oh, not that much, not as good. And structural framing, I'll make you a little transparent as well. Okay, so you can see that there is a member coming this way, and then there's another member going that way, and the third one coming in the other way. But again, you'll see that since we selected 600 members, or 600S to 100, you'll see that it's actually creating the 600S members here as well, even though this is a 4-inch wall. So for multi-system markers, you need to create 2 markers, one for 400, one for 600, or basically different sizes for different walls. Okay, The next one we have is a truss header. So these ones, again, I'm just going to go ahead and say quick create. And we have three different types of truss headers. I'm just going to show you two of them right now. And then we'll get into wood. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And this one also gave me the error because of, oops, let me just select this and go, whoa, 3D, there, okay, good. So you'll see that we have two different types of headers. This one didn't get created because it was way too tall. The wall is way too tall. So let's bring these walls a little further down. So I'm gonna filter out everything except for the walls. Oops, let's do that again. Okay, and I'm gonna drop the walls down to be unconnected and be only 10 foot in length. Maybe 8 foot is better. No, that's too low. 9 foot is better. There, that should be good. So let's go ahead and regenerate these two walls. Because this one's using matching cripples and or symmetrical V, and then this one is using the truss header Y functionality. So for the Y, it's easier for it to create for taller walls because it has that little, it has the height constraint for this, and then it's gonna just, yeah, it's not placing the additional cripples, and I'll show you why. But over here, you can see that it's creating the symmetrical V. Earlier, it was not creating it because we have a minimum and a maximum angle value specified. So let's go take a look at that marker really quickly. Here you can see that we have a minimum and maximum angle. So since the wall was so tall, it couldn't meet the minimum or the maximum angle. So it didn't create it, and it didn't know what to do, basically. So that's how you can use this functionality. And then for the Y, the little pieces didn't get created because in our panel properties, I'm gonna just go ahead and do for both of them. In our panel properties, our minimum cripple length is set to 1 foot. So maybe that distance is less than 1 foot. So we'll make it 3 inches and see if now it gets created. And there you go. You'll see that now it created those little pieces, and it's because those pieces were 10 3/4 and not more than 1 foot in length, it wasn't creating them. So that's basically our truss header options. And now we're gonna go through some of the wood markers. Maybe I won't go through all of them. We already know what the default ones kind of look like. So I'm just gonna go through top of panel, top of opening, and beam pocket. Just because of the time constraint. But let's quickly go over top of bearing beam, top of panel. So let's take a look at this wall in 3D. And basically, again, I'm gonna select this one, this one, this one, and this one. And I can go to markers, apply opening type. And you can see I have 4 openings selected. And over here, it says wood bearing beam, top of panel. Let's go take a look at what that looks like. So in here, this is our user interface for our wood bearing beam top of panel. Right now, our alignment by default is set to back. If you set it to center or spaced, it will create something like this. And if you want to actually place fillers in between headers, you can choose the family for the fillers as well. Okay, so it will place actual little members in here if you wanted to do that. Right now we have 3 headers by default. You have a header sill as well. So if you wanted to place something here, you have a header sill pad. If it's you can place right over here. You have a nailer option. You have a sill option. You have a sill pad option. Again, that would be over here. And then you have your jacks, how many you want to place, and then you have your kings. And you have your jacks on the right side as well. You can also place in short jacks if you wanted to. You can place in bottom nailers. You can also specify your cripple spacing if it's consistent, or you know, if it is equal to restarted at the king or centered. So I'm just going to do consistent. And over here, you can choose all of your sizes. So in this, you'll see that we can't just leave it blank. So that means you have to create a marker for each different size of wall. So if you have a 4-inch wall, you need to create a 4-inch marker. If you have a 6-inch wall, you have to create a 6-inch marker. Okay, so you'll just need to keep that in mind for this. You can also place opening straps if you'd like. Over here, you can also set up a rule set stating that if this marker is applied on a 6-inch, or sorry, 5.5-inch wall, then do this kind of framing for it. If not, then don't. But that's basically that. And then, yeah, that's all. So you can go ahead and hit OK and hit the checkbox here. And then we're going to go ahead and frame this 1 and 2 and just go ahead and quick create. All right. Give it a second. All right, so there you go. You can see that this is at the top of the panel. So I'm gonna just go ahead and actually make this go VV here, and then just make these two not transparent, because for steel, we kind of need to see through. For wood, it's pretty easy to see the connections like so. But if I click on this, you can kind of see the top condition here. Or if you want, I can actually just shrink this down. And now you can see the way the headers are placed, and you can see that there's like a little shim piece being placed in the middle as well. Okay, and over here as well, you can see that it's placing a vertical stud, but all of these members are 2x6s over here. Okay, so just something to keep in mind, that it is going to follow whatever the header size is here for this portion. All right, so that's the top of panel option. And then we have something in something that only relates to, something that only relates for wood or applies for wood options is, we have a marker over here that's called, we have one that's called wood beam pocket under track. We also have one that's called wood opening no header. There, wood opening no header. So this is only an option for wood. So if I click on this, you'll notice that it creates an opening framing like so. So it creates a sill and the kings, but it will cut the top track and it will not place a header at the top or any cripples at the top. So you can use something like so, and we can hit again the checkbox and hit the checkbox. And over here, we have another option that's called markers apply opening type, and it's called wood beam pocket under track. So if I click on the little pencil for that, you'll see that it leaves the top tracks the way it is, but it places these jacks underneath. And if you wanted to place a filler in between, you can actually place a filler in between too, but you just need to make sure you have a proper size for the filler created, so you can add that in. You can go ahead and hit OK, and really quickly frame these walls. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have. And there you go. So you'll notice that it doesn't matter where this opening is. So even though it's ending short and you could technically fit a track up there, maybe you need to leave that open for a duct that might be eventually coming in, or you need that space open for shared space or something like that, or like maybe a bearing beam is going to be coming through on top of that. So maybe you create your openings shorter, but at the top, you know, there's something else coming from another consultant. So that's when you can use something like this. You can also, you'll see that over here that it doesn't place a sill at the bottom all the time, but it will place your top tracks like so. It should, I thought. Let me just quickly check. Apply opening type track. Yeah, it doesn't place any sill. It just places the jacks underneath. Okay, so that's basically our two opening options for beam pockets if you have them without any header and no track, or you want it with a header but no sill. Okay, we have the similar option for bearing beams for top of opening. So I'm just going to go ahead and quick create these two, and then we'll go take a look at their marker. And after this, we'll take live questions. So, all right. So we'll just go ahead and do 3D view. And here you can see that it created the bearing beam on top of the opening. So again, let's go quickly take a look at the options. And here you can place, again, your alignment, you can fix however you like. You can add a header, you can add a header sill, you can add a header. So that's a header sill, and then those are the typical headers in the middle. And then over here, you can see if you want a header pad. Sometimes folks use this to place like their sheathing piece. And then you have a sill, you have a sill pad, which gets placed right above actually. So you can actually use that again to replace, to kind of create a copy of your sheathing if you need to. And then you have your jacks and your kings if you want on the left side and right side. And you can add a bottom nailer, you can add a top nailer, and then short jacks and so on and so forth, okay? So you can do something like so. So I'm gonna just test something out, sorry. So 3.5, and for this one, I want it to be this, and add. And if I say 5.5, oh no, that's our default. For the 5.5, I want it to be this. I'm just testing something out to see if it will work for you guys as well. And that's it. So let's go ahead and hit OK and hit the checkbox. And I'm going to just go ahead and regenerate these walls. Okay. And once I do that, okay. No, that didn't work. Okay. So yeah, that's it. For this marker as well, you'll have to do your double, you'll have to do your opening markers twice. So you'll have to do one for 400 and one for 600. All right, that's it for today's webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
All right, thank you, Aparna, for the presentation. And I see that we have a question from Brittany Vitort. Apologies if I mispronounced your name. And it goes, how do you fix the header from going into the double top track when you are using the frame to top of panel marker? So I'm just going to unmute Brittany in case she wants to verbalize the question as well.
Okay, and are you using this for LGS or wood? When you have a double top track, it's typically for wood, is what I've seen. So if you're doing something like top of panel, let's go to 3D for this. So right now,
it's just for wood, by the way.
It is just for wood, yeah. So over here, you can see that it is actually going through the top track. You can actually choose, I believe there isn't a way to just move it down, especially when you have a double top track. So I don't think there's a way to do that, but let's see. Let's go take a look at the marker. There should be something in there. If not, it would be a manual effort where you have to select the members and move them down. Or you can also use the, yeah, but I'll take a look. Over here, no tolerances. I don't know. I don't think the tolerances would work for this. Interesting. I've never actually had that issue before. All right, I'm gonna actually check on this with my colleagues and get back to you, but I believe that if you have a double top track, it is, you'll have to move this down manually, and there's no real automatic way to do it. Yeah, sorry, that's the only answer I currently have, but I will definitely get back to you if I can find a better solution for that. I have one other way to check, which would be like cutbacks, but I doubt it's related to cutbacks. Let's go ahead and cutbacks and say headers, bearing beam, top track. No, this is headers. Flush inner, no, that's the cutback for the headers. Top track edge, headers, no. Sorry, there's no option for that here either. These are cutbacks, so you can actually choose where you want your headers to extend into or not extend into. I don't think there's any other cutback options here. That has to be bearing beam, top, start alignment, no. Header still, no. Yeah, sorry, I will get back to you on that. I will make sure I check with my colleagues. Any other questions?
Right. While we're waiting for some other questions to pop in, I would just like to let you know that a recording of this presentation will be sent through tomorrow via email, and will be released early by the end of the day on our social media channels, primarily LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So please feel free to share the recording with any of your colleagues, and please do give our social channels a like and a subscribe.
Clashing. All right, I'm gonna also do one more thing for this, the previous question. We do have an option where, I don't know if it's actually gonna help, honestly, but I'm gonna just see. We have an option where you can actually set up your member priorities, but you technically just want this to go below the track, right? You don't want to actually have it delete itself. Because we have an option that says disable clashes between headers and tracks. But basically what this does is if a header and a track is clashing with each other, it will, instead of deleting that member or deleting the header or deleting the track, it will probably delete the header, I believe. Instead of deleting that member, it will just keep both of them there, and then you can decide which one you want gone, basically. So that's what this is for. Typically, if you click on override priorities, you can see over here that the door members, the window members, and opening members take priority over all other members. So technically, it should have it go down properly, but it doesn't seem to. But if you add a disable clash, basically that's what it does. It stops it from going through. Give it 1 second. Nah, that's not going to be a solution. But I'll definitely get back to you on that. But anyone else have any other questions related to markers? Yes, no? No?
I do believe that looks like a wrap for today. However, if there are any other questions or if you find yourself requiring any clarifications after this webinar, please do feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details will be provided along with the recording email tomorrow. And if you would like to have a one-on-one demonstration with one of our product experts, we will be happy to set that up for you as well. We will now be ending the webinar. Thank you, Aparna, and to everybody else who joined us today. We do hope you have a great day ahead, and take care.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.